Welcome to Luminous Human School. In this episode, we are interviewing someone we have so much love and respect for, Anthony Abbagnano. He is the founder of Alchemy of Breath, one of the world's most respected breathwork schools. He's also the founder of ASHA in Tuscany, Italy, a center dedicated to community health and emerging consciousness. His vision is to train 10,000 facilitators in breathwork to bring ease to the human soul using the power of the breath. Christy and I are not only students of Anthony's school, Alchemy of Breath, but we have both been mentors as well as trainers with this school. We both feel this program is extraordinary and transformational.
And if you have interest in breath work and the Alchemy of Breath training, we have a special code for you to join that is linked in the description below. We met while completing our studies with Alchemy of Breath, and that's one of the many reasons this community is near and dear to our hearts.
So we hope you enjoy our conversation with Anthony today.
Welcome. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Anthony. It feels so good to have you here, and we're so excited. You are actually our first guest, and we are so honored to have you as our first guest.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both so much. And it's a delight. It's a delight to be with you too.
Thank you. Yeah. This feels so good. You have so many beautiful projects going on. You have a breathwork school, which is one of the premier breathwork schools in the world. You have a gorgeous physical retreat center in Italy. You've had a breathwork practice for many years. How did you first find breathwork? What really sparked this whole journey?
Well, I think probably in the first few years in my life, until I was 10, I learned to live with a growing sense of disappointment that the world wasn't as gentle and kind and caring as I needed it to be. And actually, I was put into boarding school at a very young age, so I left home when I was 7. And you know how kids at boarding school, it was an all-boys school, and kids at boarding school horse around and they get into fads and phases and all kinds of things. Well, one of those was breath work. And it actually started with me because one kid came up to me. I think he was probably trying to tease me, and because I was quite small for my age, and he put a paper bag over my mouth and told me to take 20 breaths. And so I did, and then he squeezed my chest from behind and then kind of let me down to the ground gently, thank goodness, because I was completely in another realm. I think I took about 20 breaths or so. And in that moment, I was reassured. I mean, in simple terms, I would say I was reassured that actually everything I'd learned until that point had no real value at all. And I felt really reconnected with where I'd come from. I really felt like I was in heaven and in a paradise. And I felt really what purpose meant in this place, in this weird planet, on this weird planet that we live on. So I think from then on, I realized that being different, I mean, it had all those connotations of feeling, am I good enough, and the outsider and all of those things. But I think that there was a value given to it that could never be taken away at that point. And that was my first time I met the breath. So it then came up again later in my teens. I was a very young parent and I had to coach my wife during her pregnancy for the birth. And so that meant practicing every night. And then, of course, the big day came and we went into the breath practice for the birth itself. So that was when I was 18, so that's 50 years ago. And then since then, and my second child, and then I got involved in pranayama in my 20s and had a strong yoga practice back then, and then explored things like Sufi breathing and rebirthing and breath holds and all of those things. But I never really ever thought it would become a profession. I had no idea that that would happen at all. It was really just pure innocent interest and joy, and incredible reward from connecting with my breath. And then later on, I became, when I decided I would do it, take it on as a profession, it was after quite a severe midlife crisis, and having been really quite successful in I was involved in architecture in Italy, and I had great success with that. So I had money, and I was searching for something more real in life. So I moved to Asia, and that's when I started to meditate. I meditated for about 7 years and stopped working and stopped being in touch with everybody, and really thought about things again and how I wanted them to be. And then it was only about 15 years ago that I took up breath as something that meant everything to me, and it does. I think I'm married to the breath, or I'd like to be.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it sounds like it was love at first sight from that initial moment, and you really spent a lifetime cultivating an intimate relationship with the breath.
Yeah, I think it gives us something that probably no human can. And I think what it gives us includes ourselves too, because it's such a gentle way to know yourself and to discover yourself. And it's so benign, it's like kind of spiritual candy. I mean, why wouldn't we want it?
Oh, it really is such a powerful thing that we all have, and then we get to spend more time with it and practice it in new ways and learn not only more about our breath, but who we are in this world and how we show up. And now you have this beautiful school, Alchemy of Breath, teaching other people to facilitate the breath. What was the biggest inspiration or the thing that helped you start this school from the ground up?
I had no intention at all of doing anything like starting a school. I just used to, I lived in Ubud at the time on the island of Bali, and I started teaching breathwork, or I started giving breathwork sessions at Yoga Barn in many years ago, and the room just filled up, and it kept getting longer and longer lines outside. I used to start, I think my session was at 8:30 every Sunday, and people would start queuing up at like 6:30 in the morning. There was never enough room. And we found all kinds of ways to fit people in the room. I mean, we had people breathing sitting up and leaning against the back wall, and all kinds of different ways of breathing. But really teaching happened because people continually came up to me and said, "Can you show me how to do this?" And I said, "I'm not sure what the how is, but we can spend time together and we can work it out, And I realized after that the how of being I want to say successful, I want to say authentic breath worker is in knowing oneself, and in that journey of self-discovery, of being able to love those parts of ourselves that we're most ashamed of, because the nature of a breathwork journey can be so profound and so far-reaching that sometimes people have to visit those places in their own personal journey. So if I'm not able to be authentically next to them, then they're not going to feel safe. So that was really the fundamental part of the training that I designed, was based on my life of knockdowns and mistakes and occasional successes and understanding the nature of humanity and the human condition. And so then as soon as people came to me and I had to sort of step over that ego shyness to come out a bit, then I was egged on by this need that I see in the world for this kind of awakening, that there's no way we can combat those negative forces that are battling with each other in the world. There's no way that we can join that conversation, but there are ways that we can introduce new conversations, and ones that are benign and kind and caring. And so that's really what egged me on, was that wish to get more and more people facilitating this work so they could get more and more breathers realizing the beauty of who they are instead of running away from themselves.
Yes. So as you talk about being with the shadow and moving through shyness and different aspects of the ego, it sounds like that may be where you just started developing this inner journey that you created that actually happens before the facilitator training, that takes people on an epic hero's journey.
Yeah, true.
In the inner world. And I would love if you could talk about, maybe describe a little bit of that program that now is going to be a standalone program and available for people who anybody who wants to take it, and not necessarily who are in the facilitator training, but is also an entry point to facilitation and leadership, as you said, to know yourself first before you can sit with others in their own hero's journey.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I actually, not just because I'm outnumbered 2-1, but I'm also very happy to call it the hero's journey. And this hero's journey is a bit sort of naturally genderist. So yeah, I think it is, in fact, it always has been the essence of the training, and we're now breaking it out because actually the same reasons I started facilitating in the first place. People are asking for it. They're saying, I really, I work in the corporate world, or I'm a teacher, or I work in the hospital services. It's not that I want to be a breath worker, but I want to understand how I can be of more service in the world. Or maybe they're just unhappy with their lot and they want to make a life change and perhaps need that little boost of courage to do so. Because it's definitely a very life-changing experience. And it's really about reconciling with all of the events in our lives that formed us into who we've become, and giving an opportunity to rewrite that. So we know as young children, in those first 7 years of our lives, we're completely absorbent. And no matter what happened, no matter how wonderful or awful it might have been, that information went into our subconscious mind. And when it got full, when that archive was full, which is usually around 7 or maybe 8 years old, then that's how we greet life. We developed kind of an operating system during those first 7 years of life that was based on doing the best we could at the age we were. And if we were traumatized in some way, abused, shocked, or in some kind of incident, the ways we coped to deal with it often might have meant pushing it away and trying to forget about it, or becoming aggressive as a way of coping with it, or becoming flimsy and weak as a way of just trying to get through. And then what we see in life is that people use these same operating systems as they navigate in the adult world. And that's why I think we see a bunch of 6-year-olds on the international stage, right? That's why we have wars and conflicts, because it's like a school playground. People are squabbling and fighting and trying to steal each other's lunchbox, but the stakes are much higher. We're now talking, levels that are horrific and tremendous human suffering. So the inner journey is really about writing the book of your life, rather than letting someone else write it for you. So we go back to stage 1, even pre-birth, and then we go through each 7-year period of one's life. So we go through some of those thresholds of life that are now forgotten in modern culture. We don't really have rites of passage anymore, but with the inner journey as we teach it, it's really about reinstating those rites of passage. So we realize that how important birth itself is. There are 8 pages of effects that your birth will have had on you. Even if you had a perfect birth, there are still a range of behaviors that you could develop that are actually quite harmful. So as we go through each stage of our life, we go into our childhood with our siblings and our parents, and then we go into socializing and adolescence, and then we go into adulthood at 21. We say, I didn't become an adult till I was about 55, but and that's the whole point of this, is so that we can put these things back into place, and we don't just bumble along getting bruised and feeling like victims of life and causing suffering for others because we're not being caring or conscious enough. So we go through each stage of life, and then we go beyond where we are today. So we go into the mastery of life in the later part of life, and then that transformation from mastery into mystery. What does that mean? When you've got it all, you've reached your peak, and then what? What are you going to do? You need to start to learn how to undo life and become more of who you can be in your inner world. And eventually we're all going to die. So how are we going to do that? How can we bring elegance and beauty and joy into that process, instead of it always being the awful, threatening, looming disaster that we're all not talking about? So we really visit every stage of life during this journey, and it's a deep process of inquiry and reconciliation. And that means really learning to love those parts of ourselves that we carry the most shame about. And once we can love those, then we can love that part of humanity too. The darkness of humanity and the wars and the perpetrators and the, is the killer or the killed suffering more, honestly? So we get to kind of become the caretakers of this show. And for those who continue into breathwork as a caretaking tool, it's a wonderful thing to do. And for those who don't, it could just become a way to be more productive and authentic in your work life, or it could be a way of sustaining a relationship for life instead of having to keep changing because you don't want to face yourself and the person that's mirroring who you are to yourself. So we do visit some uncomfortable places, but it's done with tremendous support and spirit and love. And it's now a 14-week process with mentors and the same kind of structure we have in our training as well. And I'm present for it as well. I get to be there every 2 weeks throughout that journey. And it's having amazing results. Well, here's some of our results right in front of me, right here. So.
Thank you for that. Yeah, how wonderful that you are going to be there for that journey with people, because I know so many people really appreciate and love the wisdom that you bring to any conversation and love learning from you. And what I love about the inner journey too, and what you were saying, is that it really is about bringing in so much love and compassion to ourselves and all of those parts of ourselves, and really learning to love on such a deep level. And I think that's such a transformative process So not only have I gotten to go through this and Christy's gotten to go through this, but we've gotten to witness many people go through this inner journey and the things that they uncover through that, and the awareness that it brings to their life and how they show up in all of their relationships and how they're acting and reacting in certain situations. And, just having that level of awareness really creates a beautiful container for growth beyond what we can imagine in this present state at times. And I know there are a lot of practices, different things that we can utilize within this inner journey. And I'm curious if there's maybe like one practice from the inner journey that you could share with our listeners that could be maybe easy and helpful for them. It's a big question.
Have you got one in your mind when you say that?
Oh,
We both probably do.
I know, we probably both do.
You want to share? Or you want me just to go with it?
I'll share one.
Okay, go with Chrissy. Yeah.
There's a practice that I love from the inner journey that it's so simple and so sweet and so easy to integrate into life, and incredibly like deceptive and mysterious in its power. It's the I love you. You look into the mirror every morning for 3 minutes, look into your eyes, feel into your heart, and say, I love you. I love you. Noticing what comes up. Does it feel true? Does it feel weird? Does it feel beautiful, expansive? Just feeling it, noticing gently and with love and compassion. This is an exercise that I learned in the inner journey, and it has touched me so deeply, and it's something I go back to again and again. And it is incredible the feelings and sensations that can come up in the body and the thoughts that I have been able to become aware of as I practice this.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think that exercise ever gets dull, does it? It's when you watch your face in the mirror. I mean, at first it can be quite excruciating. I think the first time I did it, I cried. I was in such shame. I just couldn't. I don't love you, and I'm saying I love you.
Yeah.
But it really is a measure of how much peace we do feel with ourselves, and it's also an invitation to feel that peace. And to put it in context, that does come, I think it's after the shadow work, isn't it? So in the class before that exercise, we've gone through some fairly interesting discoveries about parts that we blame ourselves for, but actually that's where our passion and our power lies. So we get to make friends with our shadow space, and that's such a great conclusion after that, to really embody it, to look at yourself in the mirror and keep saying I love you. And 3 minutes is a long time, huh?
It is. Yeah, I do remember shedding tears in that exercise, and they come again and again. It's not like it just happens the first time you do it. It can happen the 300th time you do it. It's whatever is alive in you in that moment.
Yeah.
And we slip.
I think all of the exercises, I mean, there are lots of these little things in there, but I think they're all born of every disaster that ever happened in my life and whatever it took to learn my lessons. And I was pretty thick-headed, as a young man. I was not a fast learner. I kept on thinking, no, this is the way it's got to be. And and life taught me. So really the design of this 14-week period is about getting someone through almost half a century of my journey, and everything that I learned and everything that I studied and all the mistakes that I made. I like to think of it as like, okay, so there's this gully and I'm on this piece of land, and there's this gully and there's a river way down below, and there's the other side that I want to get to. And I had to go all the way down and meet all the monsters and climb up the other side to get to that piece of land across the way. And really what the inner journey is about is providing a bridge for people to be able to get that wisdom without having to pay that awful price. And I think that really meets the youth of today too, because I see so much brightness and so much hope and so much possibility and capability, as much as there is darkness. But when I see the youth and the natural wisdom that they carry, a tool like this is just extraordinary. And then I've also seen 75-year-old people go through the inner journey and understand so much about their past. And you find when we work together as a team, the youngsters, the 22-year-olds are teaching the 75-year-olds and vice versa. It's just such a rich, fertile environment that we share of intimacy and safety and depth and encouragement and accountability and beauty and love, of course. It all ends up understanding the value of love.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's the essence we try to come to, or we are working to come to, is just remembering that love within ourselves. And that is always there. It's always been there. And it's like a returning back to that and remembering that it's always there for us. I think that's what, yeah, is so beautiful about the inner journey, and really embracing those shadow parts of us. And it's like an ever evolving process, and it's like you don't just go through it one time and you're like, I did it. I finished. I mean, this is a lifetime of work that we get to do it, because I don't want to say it in this sense of like we're always doing this work and it's always heavy, but it's like when we come out the other side, it's like, wow, what a journey that was. And look at me now, and how beautiful it is to see that growth within ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get to bloom in that again and again.
Yeah.
Of course, there are how many layers to the onion are there? We just keep to, and that inner journey is actually happening. It never stops. I mean, I say 14 weeks, but actually it's forever, isn't it?
Yeah. So one of the other beautiful spaces that you hold for people has bloomed into ASHA, the physical alchemy school of healing arts.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about the birth of ASHA as a physical space and all the beauty that's unfolding there.
Yeah. Well, our ASHA, Alchemy School of Healing Arts, we're based in southern Tuscany, in Italy, and we're on the side of a very special mountain called Monte Amiata, and it's a mountain that's had strong spiritual significance for many centuries. In fact, the Franciscan Way it's kind of at the bottom of our driveway, where St. Francis walked, and which is a bit like the Santiago Trail. Has the same sort of significance. And so we're set in rolling hills and cypress trees and fields and vineyards and olive groves, and very, very beautiful, peaceful environment. But at the same time, being on the side of this mountain that's, I think, 200 million years ago erupted, but there's still very much a volcanic energy and
Mm.
similar to our first retreat center in Bali, which was on the side of Mount Agung, this one is on the flank of Monte Amiata. And so there's really a very strong transformative energy that exists here. It's a place of, I would say, inner work. It's if one comes here and one is lazy, it will definitely wake you up. It's quite turbulent. And we came here as the first people, other than local Italians, to ever come here. It's actually an area that's been abandoned over the last 50 years. It used to be a little mining town that sits right above us, and it's now over 90% empty. So ASHA was born really because of the call of all of our followers at Alchemy of Breath. We've got so many breathers now in the millions, and whenever we'd ask them, would you like to have a grounded vision of what we do online, the reaction has been overwhelming. There's always been such a huge yes. So about 5 years ago, I started looking for a place and checked out North America and Asia and all of Europe, and decided on Italy because of this particular combination of things that's here. And so the campus itself is about 35 or 40 acres of land with houses dotted on it, and a group room, our first group room, and we're about to build our second one in the next year. And then many people who've come here have bought houses too, because the town is empty. So we're now beginning to repopulate the town and starting our give back program, which is to collect money, which we're collecting in the form of donations, and then using it to regenerate the town, to help bring it back to life. And not just for foreigners, because I'm really conscious of not wanting to colonize this area, but really we want to learn from the wisdom of these local people that in some perspectives might have been considered to have lived a simple life, but actually in that simplicity, there's a tremendous depth to, and a wonderful, that whisper of wisdom that comes from people who have a developed sense of irony at life and are in that latter stage of life where they have nothing to prove. So we're seeking to integrate with them, and really what we also want to do is encourage their grandchildren to come back, because they've all gone to Rome and Florence and Milan and overseas to seek livelihood. We're trying to develop some virtuous circle businesses, which are other social enterprises that can bring people back into the area. And we want to see new children meeting with the elders, and just to recreate a life that's safe from the outer world and really stands for what alchemy stands for, that we can change this world, but it has to be from inside outwards, not from expecting the outside to change for us. So we run right now, we run breath camps like crazy, which is at the end of our teacher training. I think we had 4 this year, and we've got 6 planned for next year, and we've probably got another 14 retreats or so that are being planned for next year. So we're going to be full of people, and it's wonderful to see people's faces as they come through the training experience and then coming together at breath camp, as you know how special that is. So.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get there and join you at ASHA and give you a big hug and just experience that transformative energy that is there. And I really love how you're looking at this from a really holistic point of view of, not just, this isn't just for Alchemy of Breath, like this is for, the people that are already there and supporting them and their culture and bringing more of that back in. And just spreading that through the whole vision. It's really beautiful to hear you talk about that and kind of get a feel for that grander vision. And I know there's probably so much more that you're, wanting to create and have ideas for. And even don't have ideas for right now that will be uncovered in time too. But it does feel super exciting to hear about it, and to be connected to you and be part of that in some way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel close, and I'm looking forward to the day we can pick you up at the station.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I know too, you're creating this with a team of people, and especially your beloved Amy. And I'm sure that, there have been lots of challenges in creating ASHA in this huge business, this huge space and healing area. Um, are there certain challenges that have come up through growing the business that you feel have like strengthened yours and Amy's relationship together?
Wow,
That's a
great
big
question.
one.
Yeah, absolutely. By virtue of stretching it.
Yeah.
When you undertake a project of this nature, there's no time off. It's 24/7 really, and as soon as we're on the land, there are people coming to ask questions, and there are people coming to buy houses, and how do we help them? How do we help them? Even from the most mundane things, getting their electricity connected to translating and getting their residence, and there's a lot to administer. I think the greatest challenge for us was in the beginning, we were not ready to handle the flow, even though we knew it would come. And in a town that not one property had been sold in probably 20 or 25 years, all of a sudden in like 9 months, 25 houses were purchased by people who breathe with us, people from the alchemy community. And there are a couple of 100, 300 more houses to buy. And we decided we wanted to do a documentary of what it's like to build community and some of the challenges that you do meet.
Wow.
And so we did a 2-part documentary, and then, at considerable time and expense. It was around a breath camp, and it was done by a filmmaker from Sicily, a really very good filmmaker. And then we realized, well, actually, we can't even release this. If we release this, we're going to get even more people coming. And right now, we're struggling to handle the amount of people that are here. And something happens when you create community, is that there are thresholds you go through, and the whole community dynamic shifts and changes. And as it grew over 12 people, and I got to 24, and then 36 and 48, and I think we hit about 140 people. And then we realized, okay, this is not the way to do this. It's too fast and too far. We need to really slow it down. So we slowed down. We've cut back on even showing people about it. We don't really go on Facebook even that much. We don't do any more public talks about it. We're really toning it down. And this last year and a half has really been about putting systems in place and making sure that we can deal with the flow when it comes back again. So if people kind of find us, then we'll entertain it. But right now it's been about just get our T's crossed and our I's dotted, and let's not spout about how wonderful community is when actually it's a hall of mirrors, and you don't know whether it's a flat mirror or a bent one. And there's some pretty gritty stuff that happens when a bunch of people come together. So she and I have been riding the wave. Amy and I have been riding the wave of that since the beginning, and it's been a thrashing, honestly, and it's been the greatest birthing that we could have ever shared. Amy was not able to have children, and she's had like dozens of them right here with this experiment that we live. So we're doing the best we can, and it's enthralling and thrilling, and sometimes we're pulling our hair out too. But I think it's really shown us how resilient we are as a couple, and I think also how peace is just one breath away.
And I do have to say, like, when I witness you and Amy, when you do events together, through Alchemy of Breath, and it's, online, big community, it's just, I always feel inspired by the way you two interact and, move through challenges, and just the way, sometimes just the way you guys look at each other, like your love truly just feels so inspiring to me. And I just appreciate being able to witness it. Yeah.
Well, she's the most incredible woman I've ever known, and I knew we knew each other as friends for 4 or 5 years before we became a couple, and I think that really helped. And I just remember saying to myself when I first knew her, I've never known a woman who can go as deep as I need to go, and she can. She's just right there, no aqua lung, no mask. You just go down there, and we get to look at everything about life. And yeah, it's been the richest part of my entire life to be with that amazing woman. So grateful, man.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I think this is a beautiful place to anchor this conversation in this deep love. And we love you so much, Anthony. And
We do.
thank you from the bottom and top of our hearts for coming and sharing all that you're up to and your wisdom and just the energy of your presence. So we thank you for being that and being that here with us today.
You're welcome. Yeah, and just congratulations to you both with your project. I think it's wonderful to get people talking to the world and bringing messages that are important, and you both stand for that. And a lot of gratitude to you both for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to our listeners for joining us here today. We love you so much.
I love you so much.
And we will share all the ways that you can connect with Anthony and Alchemy of Breath and ASHA in the description below.